no other waivers. You do meet distance requirements, sizing requirements. There is no change of use or sizing of the system by number of bedrooms. So therefore, again, we're only asking for one waiver, and that is to the site. There was nowhere else on the property that we could find suitable location with a water table any better than 6 inches from the ground to the front wall.
Questions, comments? If none, I have a motion to accept the waiver. For a second? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, septic system waiver is 64 Belvedere Avenue.
Good evening, and thanks for having me here tonight. Eric Woodbury with Golden Amwell Engineering. The septic system that my office designed and submitted to the County Health Department for review is for 64 Belvedere Avenue. Currently, there's a two-bedroom dwelling on the property, and the septic system will be designed as for a two-bedroom dwelling. All of the testing completed on the property is in conformance with the septic code of the township's ordinances. We're here tonight to seek 3 waivers, primarily dealing with where the existing wells are on our property and where the wells are on the neighboring property. The property to the north of us, or to the rear yard, their existing well is about 94 feet from the proposed septic system, where 100 feet is required. The property to the west, or to the left of us, their existing well is about 61 feet. And again, 100 feet is required. And on our particular property, our well is located within the building, and where we have sited the septic system is about 50 feet from our well. Now, it should be noted that the current septic system is malfunctioning on the property. That's located almost immediately to the back of the dwelling. So the design that we've prepared actually creates a greater separation from the existing well on the neighboring property, which is the property to the west of us. Those separation distances are two of the waivers that we're seeking, and in addition to that, given where the property is in the limited area that we have at the back of the property, Hunterdon County Health Department generally requires from the edge of your grade to the property line, you need to have at least 10 feet. In our particular case, we cannot provide 10 feet, we're actually providing only 2 feet. However, the actual sand enclosure that comprises the bed, that's located 10 feet from the property line. So that's the third waiver that the applicant seeks tonight.
Waivers or 4 waivers?
3 waivers.
Neighbors been notified? Well issued?
I will have to check, but I don't think the answer is yes. I don't believe they were notified. We could certainly reach out to the neighbor, let them know what the proposal is, and then provide any copies of correspondence back to the board.
Do you have any idea what the depth of the casing on any of these 3 wells or 4 wells or different?
That I don't know.
Do you feel that that would be important to know?
We can certainly check the health department's record to find out what information is available regarding the well.
It just seems to me that every time a design comes in, they never know that the depth of the casing. Would you think that would be a rule that we should have in place so that these guys know that that is a requirement of what's happening? Another rule that we need to talk about, you know, because here you are with the issues up on the commons, with the problems of the pollution, and we don't even have an idea what the casing depth is.
The old wells county doesn't have any records.
Well, I don't care. Make them or whoever pay to get the casing. They should already have that report. This board should make them do that. We have that authority to do that. Just saying.
And you would want that for any of them that are within 100 feet?
Yes, closer than 100 feet of the requirement, and you're asking for a waiver, shouldn't we know where the casing is on the well? Would it be beneficial? Well, yeah, right. I mean,
Even it's getting better, this is a good time to get the information.
that's right.
I guess it's getting a little worse to the one well,
Yeah.
better to the other two wells.
I understand, but still, you're still.
Oh,
They had a recommendation, I know, in a letter.
I see that.
that's what I was gonna say. What's in there?
So that's no, that's would be additions, but I think that was only of the primary well, not the neighboring.
Not your neighboring well. That's where my problem has always been hung up. You're taking care of the applicant's well, but what about the neighboring wells that you're bringing, I mean, you're helping by putting a new system in. Granted, it's better than nothing, but you're also moving that new system closer to existing wells, and we already have problems up there with other issues. So why add to it? And this is why we could talk about another issue that we need to be part of this.
The other part of it is if they even had 50-foot casing, maybe they should still have PV being this close.
Correct. Exactly.
So, I don't know, I know it's required to be restricted, the same property to have UV on the water from the well, but our neighboring properties, I'm trying to remember, that's,
But also in here, that's why I asked earlier, it says that neighbors should have been notified by certified mail of this plan and this meeting. So I don't know if they've done that. I'm trying, in the past, I think we may have required that neighbor be notified or the well be sampled. I don't think we're required.
I know some towns, local boards will force the applicant that's doing a repair or alteration, whatever you call it now. I've been out of the loop for quite a while, but they do make, sometimes, they make the applicant pay for the neighboring wells to also have stuff going.
UV.
Yeah.
Maybe an investigation of the well casing.
Yeah, and they do all that because of their concerns with what you're reading, is with drinking water. I mean, this is stuff this is all coming up because it comes up every meeting, like we have the same thing. And I hate to hold you up there, but it's just not being taken care of properly. So move on.
This one also has your other bug associated with it. The slope is 2 feet from the neighboring property, and is there a wall, how you gonna keep,
I mean, now you're putting, the same issue happens to, when you're putting that close, and I know they're gonna rate it probably. But again, you're forcing water possibly onto the neighbor, how that goes. But if you really have no option other than to shift it a little bit to the right, and then you push it closer to that other well. It's tough up there on them lots to do something that Eric's been doing it for a long time, and he knows, but I'm just concerned about, as we repair these little systems up on that part of the township, we're dealing with small lots that the engineer has minimum movement. But we also have to be concerned about the drinking water up there, because it's already under the microscope of the state and the township. So I would hope that this board either approve it with strings attached to it, like they can get here and look at these other wells, or whatever you want to do. I'm very concerned about this board. But
So for me, it's hard to make recommendations for the applicant to do things on somebody else's property when they haven't been notified and get input, so.
Yeah, this will say the engineer shall provide notification
well, but definitely a request to be made to say, to offer to put UV on their system. They can offer, they can refuse, but,
Or at least sample.
Well, I think once you have to sample the water anyway, to the county, isn't that part of the deal when you do these? Don't you have to sample the water at the existing house as well, that you're building the system on?
Yeah, so on our property, as part of any certificate of occupancy, water samples have to be collected and analyzed, and then the data provided to the health department to make sure it's potable.
Not maybe,
Not the neighboring properties.
that's where we should, but we don't have water. I don't know whether we have to.
But if the notification went out, those people might be here and ask that question
Well,
themselves.
okay, so we'll ask it for him right now. Do we have that author, do we have that power here, attorney, to make that decision? Can we force this applicant to do anything with the area well?
So before I answer that question, I think the notice question is your starting point. So notice was never sent, you really should actually be discussing this on hold at this time. I apologize if that means you have to come back, but the notice isn't sent, that is your starting point. And then the next time it comes before you, we can certainly address that part of the question that you asked.
There you go. Sounds like
seems like if somebody,
See you in September.
if somebody's requesting a waiver, we have the authority to request additional things be done.
Within reason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible that the suggestion is that they work with the neighbor, sample the well.
Yeah, as a minimum, sample the well, see what it is at this point.
Well, the existing disposal field is in the same location as the proposed one.
No, so-
It's a little bit, a little bit off, but not significantly.
Yeah, well, the existing field is actually closer to the neighboring well and to the west of us, much closer. Keep in mind, that's just a whole system that's in ground. What we're proposing is going to provide much better water quality before it actually discharges back to groundwater. So I do appreciate the board's concern, certainly will abide by any decision the board makes, but the advanced treatment systems do provide better water quality. That's why we've chosen to use it with the, knowing fully well that we can't meet all of the separation distances, just given the nature of the property and where the wells are. So net, this is going to be a benefit as compared to the resource there, which wouldn't require any relief from the board.
fully agree that you're, whatever you do there is hard. But regardless of wells, or if you don't have any information, I would think that you should
Chair, I will ask Mr. Klein.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
We're gonna try and do that on committee meeting night, not at work.
So if we only have this one, then we can probably do Doug and this one. If there's four, we want to.
Okay. All right, no unfinished business. Straight reports. Anybody have any comments on the correspondence? Any discussion? If anything I would add, we've met with the county, I was on a call before, I don't know whatever happened to that, where some of this stuff, you gotta, the county's concerned about the 50-foot casing on the site, but they don't do anything with a well that's 50 feet away on that impact. Figure out what the authority is or the county's thoughts on it.
So the county is not going to do anything outside the scope of whatever's on their plan. It's up to us as the local board, if they come to, because as you know, and you've been doing this as long as I have, and some of you on the board here as long as you have, they go into it with blinders on, and they're giving us all the problems that they don't want to be responsible for. And that's the way it's written. They don't want to have the responsibility of making that toe if the word's going to be on the neighbor's property. They want us to have it because when there's a problem, that problem comes back here to this board after that. So what we need to do is adopt ordinances to take care of these issues that we're coming up with. It's a repeat of every time they come here. It's either the toe or the wells. They don't give us no information on the well casing. To sit here and I hear all of you ask that same question of what's the casing, what's the depth of the casing? I don't know. We don't know, but you have to enact ordinance. And this board has that power to do that. And then we don't have to sit here, then they, as the engineer, already looks up our code book and goes, oh, they have an ordinance already, so we have to abide by that. Or we have to come in and show them why we can't reach that. Make that happen. But as long as we don't have it, it's a free.
Yeah, we had to call with them, went back then about us getting copies of plans we don't know about, and we had to call, and I don't know what happened.
I understand, and it's not like it was 20 years ago when the board was act here. Things have changed now, and we're seeing the problems that have happened because of the boards haven't acted, not in the wrong way, but they didn't have the information. Now things are hitting where wells are being polluted. We need to look at this stuff. We need to be very much in tune with the ordinances, and we have to make our local ordinances up to date. Because I'll tell you what, I've looked at some of our ordinances and I'm going, there's stuff in there that's 60 years old or whatever, and we just gotta revamp it. I know it takes time to do that, but we have to.
We should put that for discussion.
Yeah. we need to do
At
that.
least get on the list of what we have.
But anyway, that's enough.
Any other comments, questions? Motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll talk to you about it. Thanks.
Okay.
But yeah, if, I don't think she registered it.
Oh, really? Okay.
So wait till January.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spots with you.
Michael, how are you?
Good, I know. We got the same call later. All the voices are like, hey, I'm doing. How's everything?
She's getting there, Susie. Her new one. She's getting there. She's still very skittish. Yeah, she's still a big dog. With that, so scared. She don't want it. She's getting there. She's okay. We went off the trip. She's smart. She's like she's very good. Right now, we have another. How does she know where I'm going? She's
Good idea.
Yeah, go for it. All the time.
Yes, yes, yes. You can see how it's across.
No, we just smacked me up. I did that, Eric. Occasionally. But we're missing one.
No, so there's 92, 3.
It was, like I said, look her in and out, like you get stuff, you know.
That's okay, yeah, we only need one. I haven't seen your new one. So you like it.
That's other documentation. Other documentation.
I've been fine.
They're the best. That's where we are.
If you know what I mean. Of course, Mr. Talley, he never was. No, I wouldn't say that. You know, we get the power in there.
The resolution, I don't see the ordinances.
Oh, that's what you were saying.
There's the, the ordinances.
What is it? She doesn't put it down. So they have to introduce
They bring them out.
after they're introduced. So usually if it's on first reading, right? But it's an introduction. And then afterwards, well, actually, they come up action. They walk over here.
No, but I mean, these are actually all.
Yeah, they must be. Otherwise, they're actually ready to be out of legislature.
Oh, yeah, they took it off. They didn't spray, they did a trespass spray. But the straw was in that. I mean, she's 84 now, but the straw, she's like a person. She had Ridgeville. Right. For like 2 days, and I thought, I'm not gonna give it to her anymore, she's fine. And it didn't spray. We went the other stuff, because I didn't insure.
That's what I said. Good to see you.
And, it was sweat. Let me show you the sweat. So what you guys do is
So,
we don't want it.
this gentleman expressed my farmer's standing on her brother. So, we've had her for a year.
Now, did you lose her?
Yes,
How old was she? Is there part of
my
that?
boy is gone.
Yes.
Double check and see, yeah, I just did it.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. Technically. Thank you all for being here. This is in order. This meeting is called to order in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. And the Publication Reform Act. Notice that this meeting was published by posting on the township website in the location designated for such notices. A copy of the agenda was also posted on the bulletin board at the municipal building, and as a courtesy also posted on the township website. Please join me in the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Bell?
Here.
Benny? Here. Poyer? Here. Bentley? Here. Gill? Here. Agenda review?
So there's one addition that I have, is Resolution 97-2026, sending the bond ordinance, 09-2026 to the local finance board. Bond council sent that over a day or so ago, because they realized that it needs to go to the local finance board.
During the meeting, we ask you to sign up for e-alerts and emergency alerts on our website, amwell.org. Trash permits for the 2026-2027 season are on sale now at $225. You're having only one official township committee meeting where action will be taken in August. That will be on August 19th. The August 5th one, we are going to change that into a workshop working session. So it will not be a normal meeting where there will be action taken, it will be a work session for the committee. Well, that's on one of the ordinances that we have in here. Presentation of the minutes. First one we have is June board. I think there are lots of questions on the minutes. For both this and the other, I would like to suggest that we table them and have a agenda item on our next meeting, which our next official meeting, we're actually taking on August 19th. I have a number of things that I'm marking. I think there's some questions. At least at least one or two other people. We have some issues as well. There are questions, corrections. I would like to have a discussion about how we want our minutes to be structured with some additional guidance from our attorney at the time. So if that's okay, I'll just table that.
Yeah, I gave Maria 3 or 4 substantive changes that she made. And I just had one more question.
Do we have the authority to dictate how the minutes are drafted?
Yes, that's a policy decision of the township.
It's a record for the township, so it belongs to the township, it belongs to.
So, and I believe we sent out examples of minutes from other municipalities in this
Yes.
variety.
As a whole, like what are the issues?
I think we need to talk about how we're going to handle statements and whether or not they're going to be.
Like if someone says, I want a statement read into the record?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've always handled them as they went directly into the.
Correct, and there's some guidance on that which I'd like to discuss in a full discussion on this issue in the office time. That's one. So if that's okay, then I would say we'll do the minutes for the time being. Any objection? That we will pursue this issue in a full discussion in our office time and come to a conclusion. Anything, council report, updates?
I apologize. At this point, we just still have one outstanding litigation matter, but we are really looking to resolve that. It has recently become a little more complicated than we've dealt with in the past regarding a cannabis issue. And so again, we're hoping to resolve it, but right now I can't tell you that it's resolvable, unfortunately.
Okay. Do we have any department heads here this evening? Any report? Eric?
Sure. I'll be quick.
Eric, ask if the microphones are on. Can't hear them.
We're not hearing anything.
And move the podium.
Can you hear me?
Move the podium to the front.
Don't you want to look at my focus?
Officer Zeller, our new IT manager, I guess?
Somewhere there's an emergency to be managed. I'll speak loud. As we all know, we had a little storm on the 3rd. There you go, John.
You're on, yay.
Hello? Okay. As we all know, we had a little storm on the 3rd. About 150 people were out during different sections of it. We sent out 3 nixles, 6 Facebook posts, and it took them 5 days to actually get everybody taken back care of, which all goes to prove the old adage that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The wind blows and the power company sucks. So that's about all I could tell you with that. So we were, like I said, we did what we could for those. We went back and forth with the power company. Robin was on, they did a mayor's build, or Bob, you remember some of those meetings that they do. Basically, they don't say nothing.
No.
So,
They talk a lot, but they don't get anywhere.
yeah, exactly. So that's what we did. You want me to do technology while I'm up here?
Sure.
All right, the website, I've been working with Mike, and Mike and I have been back and forth with some ideas. We've managed to, I believe, get the best of it up and running. Joan has done quite a bit.
Day, are we hiring someone to look it all up?
What's that?
You said day, are we hiring someone to look it
It's
up?
probably going to be,
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
no, but it was also coordinated with Civic Plus, getting them to get it on our website as well.
you know, with they being the website. They were all hot and heavy. Let's get this thing hooked up. Yeah.
Not with the PowerPoint.
Sure, I understand. Okay, thank you.
All right, that's it?
Thanks, Aaron.
Is there any update on the preservation of the,
Well, would you like me to give a little report from open space?
yes, well, and an update if you have it.
The update is we are moving forward. Our point person that is handling that part of the job is on vacation and we're not in September, but we are moving forward. So the second thing that I want to bring up is the property survey at Woodens North. As you know, this started, Councilman Kelly was so helpful in getting this started, and then politics changed, and now I've asked in January, May, and June, and nothing's been getting done. So I'm going to ask this committee if I could have the permission to call our engineer, Decker, up and make that arrangements to have the north property line surveyed, because somewhere along the line it's getting lost in the mix here. And I'm not really worried about what the other engineer did or didn't do. We need to get this sort of line marked out. If I could just make the call to them, handle it, and then we'll get done, and then I can report back to you and saying that it is completed.
It's the committee's pleasure, sir.
I have no issue with it. It's been on John's list for a long time, and I
Yeah,
know.
it has been on the list for a long time. It got hung up in all the transition from engineers, but yes, please do. Please do.
Perfect. Second item would be, I would like to have permission to meet with the CFO. I think Peter is here Tuesdays and Thursdays. I just need to get some sort of an account on how much money is in that account now, because Bob, you asked me for a budget. For me to do that properly, I need to know what we have in there, because we have these other issues that we're, going to be paying for. And then I'd like to get that information from him, because he's the point guy, right? So if I have that permission to ask, if I can meet with him.
And when are you gonna do that?
Well, I'm not sure. It might be, it was supposed to be tomorrow, but I just remembered on my schedule I have to be somewhere, so it'll probably be next Tuesday.
Because I'll be able to give you the exact amount for the postage.
Oh, whatever, yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you all, that's all I have to report on. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. I don't believe you have anybody from the Environmental Commission this evening. Or, yes, actually you do, sorry.
I didn't see you.
It's over here. It's hard to see you guys, isn't it?
Well, it's, okay.
Well, at least a little bit. Anyways, okay. Now you can't see.
No, you can't see.
All right. Okay, anyways, we did not meet in July. Joel isn't as organized, I assume he's still there now. But I did want to bring up the question, I did not see it in the agenda, appointment for Linda Mayer as a,
I was waiting until Joe got back to confirm a third person and do it all at once.
oh, okay, that's fine. I think the next meeting is August 6th.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
cool.
I was waiting for that.
Okay.
Everybody agree we have minutes for approval to post to the website? Any issues with that? Okay. And we have a July 28th Finance Committee meeting scheduled. I believe, Carrie, this is where to go over the capital budget. That was what we scheduled in the last meeting that we had. I don't believe we have anything from the historic committee. Parks and Rec,
We haven't met, so I'll
Okay.
take it.
anything of note from the land use board?
This seems off center, something, but
I just wanted to follow up on the discussion at the last meeting. Former Mayor Calley and Mr. Polito had asked about the land use board investigating the class 3 members. So I did ask Mr. Polito to submit his comments and the data that he had on that in writing so that it could be provided to the full board, as well as the land use board attorneys who could look at it and then advise the board. So at this point, I believe all of his materials, and there were some subsequent materials that he sent, were provided to the full board as well as the board professionals. The board attorney did review it and did advise that the land use board has no statutory authority to conduct any kind of investigation in this way. There's nothing in the municipal land use law that would authorize us to do that. I did relay that to Mr. Polito, and I did invite him to come to the meeting next week if he would like to. We have several applications in the pipeline, so I told him to check in with us later this week if he does want to come, so I can at least try to give a time estimate of when he'll be able to speak, because obviously when we have professionals there, who are being paid for by applicants as well as taxpayer business, when we have the engineer and the planner there, we have to take that into consideration. But once those items are done, he'll be allowed to speak if he wants to and present whatever he wants to the board. And that's pretty much all I can say on it beyond that. Any questions? Okay. And I did meet with Ag Advisory earlier this month to talk about the ag structures, and we're kind of looking at it from a two-tier approach. One is we're going to look at accessory structures in general, because I think we've all discussed that that's something we need to look at, like the front yard. Some of the sizes, maybe do a sliding scale like Delaware Township does. And then also we talked about the possibility of having some kind of self-certification that the township could use, for the zoning officer to use, for looking at things that are commercial farms that might save people a visit to the county. Porter Little started working on a checklist for that. It needs some work, but I think it's a good start. And once we have something a little bit more concrete, I'll bring it to you guys and see what you think about it. Okay, thanks.
Cannabis advisory, we have another item on the agenda for that. So we'll skip that. We do technology, might a little bit of affordable housing. Although I do have an update from Mr. Powley. We did check with our affordable housing attorney, and the Fair Share Housing does have funds for defending townships only when it's just an issue with the agreement itself, not for any condemnation or other purposes. I have a letter from our attorney if you'd like to see it. I have a motion over to public. Second.
Anthony Polito, 23 Larry Road. So I want to first address Sean's comment. What he said is correct. They have no absolute power to remove anybody from the board. But what they do have the right to do is write a recommendation. If his lawyer spoke to him, his lawyer, the land use board lawyer, and my lawyer spoke. Because Brian Pitt is a class 3 member of the land use board, they have no right to demand or remove him directly from the board. My also understanding was the lawyer from the land use board was waiting for the violations because it was just hearsay at the time. But the violations are here, they're present, I have them, and I will be presenting them to the land use board, as well as the township committee. He's been in violation of building with no permit, occupying a resident without CO, he's being fined, his septic's not in compliance. Everything that I said about him is true. Now again, Sean being the chair of the land use board, I understand that you can't take action, but my question is, do you agree with his actions as a member sitting on the board?
Please direct your comments.
I don't need to.
Yes,
I don't.
you
No,
do.
I do not.
Yes, you do.
No, I do not.
We're
I
not
do
doing
not.
this.
We're not doing it. You're right. Stop my time, because we're not doing it. You've all been notified that you cannot stifle my freedom of speech. I can turn around and speak. I don't need to look at you. I can do whatever I want to do up here. So please don't interrupt me again. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm not being arrogant. You do not get the right to tell me when I can or can't speak. Please make that noted. Thank you. So my question is, do you agree with Mr. Fitting's actions.
Please direct your comments up here.
Sean, do you agree with Mr. Fitting's actions?
No one should be speaking. Direct your comments here.
I don't need to direct my questions here. No, I do not. Stop the clock, Maria.
No.
Yes. I'm not going to leave because I do not need to direct my comments here. I do not need, then I'm going to turn around. So what I feel,
Please stop.
what I
Direct your
feel,
comments here.
what I feel is that these people are,
Direct your comments here.
there is no, this is called free, I don't need to look at anybody. I
Your
will turn
freedom is to
around
come here and
and,
speak, and you are to us.
I'm not, I'm here to speak to the public. It's open to the public.
To the public.
To the public.
To the community.
To the public, open to the public. And stop my clock because what they're doing is they're trying to, then I'm not going to leave. Then I'm not going to leave.
5 minutes. You have.
No, listen to me. I do not. I have 2:44 at this
It's your
point.
choice. Officer, you'll be asked to leave in another 2 minutes.
You cannot violate his First Amendment right.
You cannot, huh? You are. I'm speaking, I'm asking the public a question.
You're not asking the public.
I'm allowed to ask the public a
The
question.
purpose of open to the public is to ask
Ma'am,
the public to speak to the township community.
the public is allowed, like I said, I could come up here and sing a song, I could do whatever. There's no rule that says I have to sit here and look at you people when I'm speaking. There's not, show me the rule.
Why is the township attorney giving orders to people in the public? He doesn't have any right to give orders.
So that's, you
Please
don't.
stop speaking. Please continue.
No. So the bottom line is, my question, the violations will be provided. If this township feels that a member can sit on a board in active violation, doing exactly what he did, robbing from the township, not filing his building with the proper people for his apartment complex under code, sitting on an open board, and the land use board, who is his neighbor, decides not to make an opinion and come up here and say what the lawyer did or didn't say, what the lawyer said who spoke to my attorney was exactly this. He didn't have the information in front of him yet, and you do not have the right to be able to throw him off the board because he's a Class 3 member. But 1,000,000%, the land use board has the right to write a recommendation to the committee who appointed these members to the board. Whether you take his opinion or not, it's legally allowed to happen. But because possibly his neighbor is not wanting to open his mouth and speak about what's right or wrong, it just shows how dirty this board is, specifically you. Read the report, please.
You're an idiot. Wait, Mr. Pfeiffer put his hand up first.
Oh, sorry.
So I wasn't going to engage in conversation from the back of the room, but
Push the, it's not working. There's a reset.
Just give it a second. If not, I'll do it on my phone. Can you see it? Sean, is that okay?
I can't.
Yeah, I mean, the public's got to
I'll tell
understand.
you that.
The public's got to
I'm not
understand.
going to use
It's my coach.
more than a minute. So, in response to his question, first of all, the land use board attorney said that we cannot make a recommendation, but we're happy to have that conversation with Mr. Correa and the attorney next week. As far as me being Brian's neighbor, it is certainly true that 3 years ago I moved into a new house, which is within 200 feet of Mr. Fitting. I did disclose. I did disclose that to the land use board attorney and asked him whether I should recuse myself from any conversations on it. He indicated that because the board doesn't have jurisdiction on it, for an open to the public, I can sit there, but, obviously if there's any kind of action, like for example, if something came before the zoning officer and Mr. Fitting, and then came before the board where there was any kind of formal action required, I'd recuse myself. I actually suggested to him in my initial conversation with him that I just recuse myself from everything and turn everything over to the attorney to handle it. He actually indicated he could not handle it because it would be a conflict for him and we would have to hire a special counsel, which we don't have a budget for. All right, so that's my comment as the land use board chair. As a member of the public, I will comment that I actually think there should be an investigation, but I actually think we need to approach it a little bit more broadly. Because I've gotten up and said a number of things over the last couple of years on a number of things, and I found a number of things where I think the township is not in compliance with various statutes and other things, and I think we kind of need like an inspector general. And I suggested 2 years ago, I think, that with all these tort claims coming in, that the township may want to engage with its insurer and see if they can have somebody come in. And I think it should be done in a positive way. I don't think anybody should lose their jobs over it. I think it should be done in a way that people can be given constructive feedback, as far as employees and so forth. But there's a lot of issues that I found where we are not in compliance with various things, and I've been doing what I can to point things out to people where possible. But some of the stuff goes back years. For example, just speaking personally again, when I filed for my building permit 5 years ago, I had to deposit $1,000 escrow for engineer review. That escrow account disappeared because they weren't tracking the escrow accounts individually. Apparently, the former CFO put everything into an individual pot of money, a single pot of money. So after I completed my project, I said, how much money is left in the escrow, and nobody could tell me. So if that kind of thing is happening to me, it's probably happening to other people, and I think there's probably room for improvement. So anyway, in response to Mr. Playo, I agree there should be an investigation. I think this is not the only thing that should be investigated, but I certainly support transparency. But I also think it needs to be done by the appropriate people. I am certainly not the appropriate person to be doing it. Mr. Playo in his emails to me had requested that I go and do a bunch of things which my understanding of the law, if I were actually to do them in the way he requested to do them, I'm sure he's not aware of this, but it would actually be me committing a felony. And I'm not going to put myself in that position. So, thank you.
So Mike Spilly, Road. So a few things. The website has improved a lot thanks to Harry and everyone else. It's a lot more usable, particularly the calendar functionality was badly broken for weeks, and it's all fixed, so it's a lot better. It's a lot easier. So thank you for everyone with that. Regarding 25 Hewitt Road, I think the Township community is aware of this, and the public is mostly as well. There's been ongoing construction there. There's been ongoing inspections from DEP. I've been talking to the DEP inspector. The storms that we had over the past week and a half have caused huge flooding on Hewitt Road. I literally woke up to just chocolate milk coming down my driveway. I go up and see, literally about an inch and a half away from the bottom of my driveway was the flood water going down the drainage ditch. It was another inch and a half. It would have went all down my driveway. The whole house would have flooded out. So I appreciate that there's been action there. I don't know if it's authorized. I know he's got more earth movers, more digging up of Hewitt Road, so Hewitt Road is getting more and more chewed up by his earth movers. He's torn out 2 of his 3 driveways. I talked to him personally. Not a very credible individual, let's say, from my perspective. So I don't know what he's doing there, but I appreciate what the township's doing to try to keep him within reason. And I think he doesn't realize the impacts he's having on everyone around here. The last part, I'm really confused why the township attorney is directing herself at individuals and trying to give commands to individuals. From what I've seen, the township attorney has no rights to actually do that. She's here to advise the township committee and the mayor. She's not here to tell the audience what to do. So I'm not sure why she thinks she has that authority, and she's tried to do it over and over. I wrote an email about this. But I'm getting very upset that an unelected official is trying to tell taxpayers what to do. So I'll take it from TC, I'll take it from the mayor. I'm not going to take it from an attorney unless she has that right, and she does not, and she knows she does not. So please stop directing and telling people what to do in the audience when you do not have the right to do that. Thank you.
The only thing I will say in terms of that piece of it, if I need to run a clean record and have the clean record for the township and for the township to actually see what is happening, then that is what I'm going to do, to just keep a clean record. It is very difficult when we have people that just won't abide by Robert's rules. It's very simple. All we ask is that you direct it here, and that you speak to individuals at this front because they're elected to answer your questions. People in the audience are not, and that's not appropriate to direct things to them. It puts people in a very uncomfortable position that no neighbor should be a part of. So, direct it here, it'll be answered here, stop please. It'll be answered here, and we'll follow Robert's rules as any township and municipality should. And hopefully everyone can appreciate that because it lets you have a clean record of what is happening.
Robert's rules have nothing to do with the audience.
Please, thank you.
No, absolutely nothing to do with the audience.
Okay,
There's no expectation of privacy in public.
We'll recognize Mr. Kelly, please. We'll recognize Mr. Kelly. Thank you.
Jim Kelly, 201 Jackson Street. I just want to comment initially first and ask the mayor some questions regarding the mayor's message. So if anybody's not aware, she posted a message, I don't know if it was a week or so ago, regarding the state of the township, and I have a few questions. So, in your statement, which I believe, are you talking on behalf of yourself or the committee?
And obviously, that's a letter from the mayor talking about what has happened in the township in the last 6 months.
Right, okay, so I just wanted to clarify that the committee was not involved in the letter.
The
it's strictly
committee
your
had the
letter.
opportunity to review it well before I sent it out.
So all the members of the committee here had an opportunity to look at it before it was posted?
Yes, they
Okay,
did.
very good. All right, I have a question regarding the language that's used. We have been pursuing the goal of ending obstructive and expensive litigation. Can you explain that to me, what that means?
That was in reference to suing the state. Basically.
In what
for the
matter?
Tier A.
What matter was it? Tier A?
It was for the Tier A and for affordable housing.
So for Tier A and Tier B, stormwater management, and also the affordable housing?
The Montville.
The Montville one. Okay, great. So could you tell me what was obstructive about that?
What it was obstructive is that it prevented the township from complying with regulations that every other municipality in the state has to comply with. And it put us behind about 3 years.
Right. So that's your opinion, I'm assuming, because you can't tell me that 100% of the municipalities.
And we also got notice of violations from the DEP
Okay,
as well.
that's fine. So they're able to do that. But you ended that litigation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think you should take the opportunity to explain to the public what those costs look like after you accepted that on behalf of the residents. We're going to end up forking over more of their tax dollars to come into compliance with something that we as a rural township should not be obligated to do. So please explain to the public how that works.
If you want to finish your minutes, then I can explain at the end in terms of.
No, I'm not, I want the mayor, this is the mayor's letter, right?
It is, but I would say I would.
No,
that's-
I'm asking the mayor because the mayor can direct it, please, thank you.
Well, the litigation was a no-win situation. And every other municipality has, and well, not every other, a lot of municipalities have already complied with Tier A. The DEP was getting ready to fine us, and they were very appreciative that we decided that we wanted to work with them rather than fight the state and continue to spend dollars for lawyers. Now, every municipality has to comply with the regulations. We're all in the same position where we have to spend the money on that.
So what kind of dollar numbers are you looking at?
At this point, I don't have dollar numbers.
Okay, so you did this without even investigating what those costs would be?
There was no way to determine what that would cost at this point. It's the matter of continuing to fight the state and then eventually being more than 3 years behind and having to spend a lot of money to catch up, a lot more money.
I would tell you there's more to that as well, because unless you had an injunction from the court to stop you actually in complying with Tier A, you actually had an obligation to comply with Tier A from the very beginning, regardless if you sued or not.
That is correct, but thank you for that. I already knew that. In the past 2 years, you said $25,000 in legal costs were spent on the cases, and that by withdrawing from the lawsuits, you would be working with DEP to address any violations and costly fines or penalties. Again, so you have the threat of the state forcing West Amwell Township, a rural community, to become an urban area in terms of definitions for stormwater management. I want the public to be clear that we are not an urban center. And that was something that the attorneys had said you could rely on because they were taking us and redesignating us as an urban center. So the public should know that you just acquiesced to that. So you gave in to the state of New Jersey because you were bullied into it and you couldn't stand up for the residents. When I stood up there, we fought for the residents of this community to try to keep that B designation.
But the B designation was removed totally by the state. There was no longer a B designation. So we all have to comply.
So the other case that you mentioned was the...
The time is up, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, well, I have a little more things to ask you about your letter here.
Your time
So
is up.
ultimately the case,
Your time is up.
ultimately the case, she said the court
Your
case
time is
is
up.
privacy. In January, the
Your time
CFO
is up.
and the QPA were unexpectedly,
Mr. Kelly, please
you had to
don't.
hire somebody else. So you mentioned that you were saving $3,000, but you don't mention that the QPA is not listed there.
Mr. Kelly,
And you
please
have the
stop taking your
finance
time
assistant.
up. It's not fair
So,
to everyone
just so you
else.
know, I understand, just give me a second. So,
But it's not
but just so you
fair.
know, the policy.
Mr. Cowley, please.
I want to just make sure that you're aware, the policy is a recommendation.
Mr. Kelly, this
I
is
read it,
your
it's a
government.
recommendation. And so as somebody who's in the public, I have an opportunity to speak to the
There's a
committee.
second public
So,
session that you can speak on.
I'm going to finish this
Right, but
with the
this
mayor's
is
letter.
not
This
fair.
is not
Mr.
good.
Kelly,
Just
please.
let me walk a second.
We are asking.
So how do you determine the amount of money that you say you're saving when there's $3,000 not enough?
Please.
No, there's
You
no
have a
please.
5-minute.
There's no please.
You're asking.
I'm asking about the
We're
letter.
asking for the police.
I don't, listen, there's not, I need time to go through your
Mr. Kelly,
statements.
please sit down.
I just want to know when you can answer these questions about your statement.
You have another.
So it's not just that I'm asking you questions, you have to answer those questions. So the deference should be
You have
to
another
allow the public.
Circle back, Mr.
second
Cowley.
public session.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Circle back.
I'm gonna go back there, I think this is a disgrace, Robin Deal. A disgrace, the way you want to conduct these meetings. If the public does not have
Mr.
the
Kelly, please
attitude,
sit down.
you know,
Please.
find your time to go ahead and act.
Knock it off! What is wrong with you?
Please,
Yeah,
please. Everyone, please just calm down, please.
Circle back.
I'm gonna go back down, but I'm just gonna, that policy is a recommendation. Look at the language, I don't agree with that recommendation, just so you know.
Mr. Kelly, please.
Thank you.
There's no plea.
Thank you, Mr. Cowley.
Ms. Hudson?
I just want to address the litigation so that everyone understands. Before you go, I just want to address the litigation because I don't want to have people walk out of here confused. So please understand, when you file a lawsuit, for any lawsuit, unless you have an injunction from the court to stop what you are doing, you have to still comply, right? I get if you don't like it, then again, that's a policy decision. But if the state is mandating something, whether you like it or not, that is a separate question. You are required to comply with it. Unless you go to court and the court says, you know what, you're going to win this at the end of the day, we're going to pass an injunction telling you you don't have to abide by that. If you do not do that, you will come into the same place where you were with this Tier A litigation, where when I stepped in, it became clear you were already starting to be fined for it. I don't think that is what you would want, but I do want you at least to know the information so you have an accurate understanding of what happened and what I stepped into in terms of the litigation itself.
Can you provide those letters?
They started.
Yeah,
So thank you very much.
I recognize Ms. Hudson, please, thank you.
Megan Hudson, 328 Rocktown Lambertville Road. I just wanted to say, based on my recollection, what occurred with the stormwater regulations is that the EPA at the federal level allowed all of the states to actually enforce the various stormwater regulations, and then it was either 2018 or 2019, essentially they audited the state of New Jersey and said, you can't do Tier B, it doesn't exist, and it doesn't meet our standards. And so what happened then was that the federal government then mandated and gave findings to the state of New Jersey and New Jersey Department and JDEP, Environmental Protection, saying that you need to address this. And so then what happened was they had to pass new legislation, which took about 2 years, that then changed everybody over, I think it was called the MS4 or something like that, right? And essentially told everybody you have to transition from a Tier B to a Tier A, and nobody's exempt regardless of how small you are or how big you are, because essentially the state did not have the jurisdiction to tell the federal government that no, these Tier Bs are a real thing and that they shouldn't comply. So regardless of whether or not the state agreed or we agreed, the feds came in and mandated it. And then what happened was the state said, okay, we're going to have to start implementing it, and then they started rolling that out, informing communities and municipalities, letting us know that these are going to be the new regs, there's no getting around it, and then the legislation that they passed then enforced it and put in all of these fining and implementation measures, right? And then different government entities started putting out grant funding to help municipalities offset the cost, because it is costly and nobody gets around that. And some of the requirements, I agree, are not necessarily needed for our town, but it's across the board regardless. And again, it's at the federal federal level requiring the state to do those changes. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. So in my personal opinion, I felt that suing the state for something that they have no jurisdiction over was not a good expense of township money, regardless whether or not we agree with it or not agree with it. It's essentially fighting a losing battle, and you shouldn't be using township dollars to fight your personal feelings on, is the state overstepping, is the federal overstepping. At the end of the day, you're gonna lose. That's my thing.
Because I don't think it was a personal feeling. This stormwater regulation will cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Super
so it wasn't a
expensive.
personal thing. It was, you know, what's best for this township. And just giving in on spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a ridiculous requirement.
But it was using West Amwell tax dollars to fight big government.
That's what I would, that would be my, that's what I mean by personal opinion. But I agree, like, yes, it essentially delayed the cost,
You know,
but
at
it's
the
still
time,
there.
we put up, I don't know, $10,000, I think, initially, and they asked for another $10,000.
That was Montville.
That was Montville.
That was Montville?
Yes, Montville was everybody,
But even if
minimum
we
was
spend
20,000
$20,000,
and 10.
yes, it's money down the drain at this point, but I don't know, it's a hard pill to swallow that we're gonna be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for years.
Yeah. In Montville, we jumped, I think personally again, that we jumped the gun because we were worried we were gonna get another number of 100 and something units and we ended up getting 38. But we jumped into the lawsuit before knowing the dollar amount. So again, I think that's one of those things where you say, oh, well, if we just waited a month, then we could have joined the bandwagon later after we knew what we were up for. But I understand that there were a lot in the round 3. So, okay, about it. Thank you.
Can I just say what Bob
No.
So I just want to, one second, I just want to clarify something. The state of New Jersey made the decision to acquiesce to the federal government, those tier A, tier B.
Our rules are once per
I will
open session.
clarify. You're right, the state.
Our rules are once per open session, but into the public session. Does anybody else have any other comments to open to the public, please? If there's no other questions, can I have a motion to close the public?
Motion.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. So, next on the agenda is introduction of ordinances. We have several ordinances to introduce. Please, keep it down, please. Ordinance number 10, 2026, an ordinance to amend chapter 109, part 9, article 19, 17? Oh, I can't remember. Roman numerals of the Code of the Township of West Amwell entitled Stormwater Management to reflect amendments to the New Jersey Stormwater Management Rules at NJAC 7:8, adopted July 17, 2023. So we are introducing this ordinance tonight as the Stormwater Management Ordinance.
I just want to double check that that is the right Roman numeral. You don't normally see an L, so just,
Okay.
FYI.
Okay. So the actual public hearing will be August 19th?
Yes.
Okay. So may I have a motion to introduce this ordinance number 10? Make a motion. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I have a couple of tiny little typos, I'll just give them to Maria later.
Yeah, that's fine. number 11, 2026, an ordinance of the Township of West Amwell, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey, creating Chapter 110 of the Code of the Township of West Amwell entitled Stormwater Quality. I would like to suggest that we table this because there's some work that needs to be done on the tree section of this ordinance.
I suggested that we have a workshop, so I'd like to have members of the various people that have been involved until now get together and go through it together and work out all the details.
Being considerate of the different folks who have stakeholders and different other residents, but we're talking about a work session on our normally scheduled township committee meeting of August 5th, where we will, in addition to having the township committee, I imagine we would have
All the
stakeholders, which would be a representative from the Environmental Commission, a representative from the Advisory, a representative from Open Space, and a representative from Land Use Board, and our township engineer, who has been assisting with the stormwater ordinances. I didn't say that. Township engineer and environmental commission. If that is okay, I'd like to table that. Anybody have any objection to that?
No, I'm not objecting. I'm sorry, I don't, for some reason, I don't have 11 and 12 in the packet.
Oh.
12 is for the haven.
Oh, yes, it's 12, okay. The vanish memo, ordinance number 12.
Oh, it's staple to it?
Yes.
There it is, got it, thank you.
All right, so we are tabling this ordinance to our next regular meeting, our next meeting, which is going to be a workshop meeting on August 5th. The next ordinance is ordinance number 12, 2026, ordinance of the Township of West Amwell, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 109, Land Development, of the Code of the Township of West Amwell to define data center and to expressly prohibit data centers as a principal, conditional, or accessory use in all zoning districts within the township. Once we choose, if we choose to introduce this ordinance, then we can remand it to the land use board for their comment.
I was going to ask if we did that.
Yes, and then after that, we will proceed. Okay. So now I have a motion to introduce this ordinance.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second? All in favor?
And again, I have a few typos, I'll just give to Maria.
Okay.
So this is going to go to land use board and then be on August 16th. As you see.
Yes.
So, isn't it August
19.
I'm sorry.
19, yeah. All right, our next ordinance is ordinance number 13, 2026, to provide for and determine the rate of compensation of officials and employees of the Township of West Amwell, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey. This ordinance, we are able to introduce this now because we passed our budget, and the ordinance reflects a 3% across the board increase in all the positions that are listed.
Were there any other changes other than 3%?
So do I have a motion to introduce the ordinance for, compensation of officials? Yes.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Go ahead. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
To the public hearing on that as well.
And ordinance number 14, 2026, an ordinance amending Chapter 16, which is Environmental Commission, and Chapter 99, Garbage, Rubbish, and Refuse, Article 2, Recycling, Section 99.-8, Municipal Recycling Committee of the Code of the Township of West Amwell to consolidate the Municipal Recycling Committee within the Environmental Commission. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Deuce? Second? And all in favor?
And, full disclosure, I've already updated the situation on the website.
What?
It's mentioning on the website that the recycling's been.
Oh, well, we can't really do that. We can't really do that until we officially do it. So could you remove that, please?
Okay.
Thank you. Nice that you're being proactive. Okay, so now we're on to our resolutions. Number 85, 2026, authorization to purchase a Max Prime mower with open space trust funds.
This is 100% open space money,
Yes.
and we're okay to do that? Okay.
We talked about this last year.
I know, but we were adamantly shut down saying we cannot do this last year. Don't know what changed.
I think they go back to the problem was last year. Yes. I brought it up.
Would you mind, if you have an explanation that everybody can hear, please? Thank you.
Open Space has no problem with funding this tractor to the full amount. Thank you. Is that all you need from me?
Unless you had other,
I just didn't know what changed, Sean, that's all.
This tractor should have been purchased last year.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Thank you for moving forward this year. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
thank you. All right,
I
so
yield my time.
I do have a motion to approve resolution 85, 2026.
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? No.
So, question, now would we be, now that you did that, are we moving forward with ordering this tractor?
You know, I think it depends on exactly when, Peter has,
Pardon me?
when our CFO is able to move forward with the paperwork for that.
Tomorrow.
You should talk to him about it tomorrow, correct?
Double check.
Correct.
We have,
We do have the quote as well, and, you know, it should be ready to go, we just talk to him about
thank
it.
you very much.
Yep. No, it'll be a wonderful addition to,
Well, they certainly need it.
they definitely need it, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, this is resolution 86, 2026, awarding the Hewitt Park fence contract to Challenger Fence Incorporated. There was a question, I guess, last time about whether it was an overhang problem or wasn't on the spec. And that was resolved?
Yeah, Mr. Fitting asked that question, which was a valid question. I asked Challenger, and he said, oh, no, it's definitely included, no problem at all. I asked for a new quote. I don't know if we ever got one.
I didn't see it, but I did clarify the language.
But it's in the language that it's included, so if there's a dispute down the road, then obviously this is null and void, but it's supposed to be included.
Okay, so that was resolved, thank you.
The documents we have still say.
I know.
No overhang, impossible.
They apparently just moved offices recently. They're not the most organized bunch to begin with, and since they've moved, it's even worse, so, but.
Are they organized enough to do this project?
They're the low bidder, they're gonna have a contract to do it, so.
And Maria, you say the contract's been revised?
No,
the resolution.
the resolution was
The
revised.
language is in there that it's included, so.
Okay. So, any other discussion, or can we have a motion to approve resolution number 86? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
What about the other projects on Hewitt Park?
So actually, I followed up today, so I made a recommendation to award the trails and soccer field grading. We awarded the pavilion So you would have a general contractor that would hire each individual, and then they would mark up everyone's price. And you would pay, 10, 20, 15%, whatever it is on top of whatever you're paying now. So we do individual contracts and we exclude the markup.
And you've already hired somebody to do the soccer field?
No, I'm making a recommendation for our August 19th meeting to have a resolution drafted to award that person. Because it was bid out, a little bidder, we vetted them.
But is that something we want to continue with, given stormwater and 25?
Well, I think a lot of it bears on, sorry to interrupt you, but 25 Hewitt Road. Having been down there and looking at what's going on, and been down there this week with our engineer and soil conservation service, there are
wetlands back there.
Yeah, well, there are
Well, behind the soccer field.
behind the soccer field. So there's two issues. That property, 25 Hewitt, has destroyed that so much, and they have moved it so much that the water is now going off the back of the property, is flooding the neighboring farm, and is also going down and flooding the soccer field. So until we get that resolved on 25 Hewitt Road,
We don't have to do any work over there.
and he's continuing, and the problem is that he's in violation of the stormwater regulations, and he is in violation with the DEP, he's got violations from the Soil Conservation Service, he's got violations from our township, and the water continues to flow down and flood back there in the soccer area, back down behind Foy's and goes down in that area. And it's our engineer's recommendation that we do not do either the soccer field or the walking trails at this point because of the problems with the water flow down there. It's got the homeowner, the property owners and very uncooperative. He continues to do work even though he's been cited a number of times.
Well, my only comments are, this drainage issue on the soccer field was an issue prior to any construction on that property. That property is over 650 feet away from Hewitt Park. And if it's going behind Mr. Foy's property, the adjacent farm, and it's dumping in the back in the wetlands. Mr. Foy's house is kind of in direct line of the soccer field, so I don't see how it's coming from his property going through the house.
It's dumping in the wetlands, which goes on the far side of the soccer field.
No, it's in the back. There's no wetlands on the side of the soccer field. The wetlands are behind.
Yeah, and it's flooding because it's over.
But what we're doing with this swale is we're directing all the water to the wetlands. So if it's already going to the wetlands in the back, this has no impact.
It's a recommendation of our engineer to not do anything with that because of what's going on there, and the soil conservation guy said as well.
My only other issue is we have a grant that's expiring in 5 months, 6 months, 5 months. Gotta spend this money, we're gonna lose
How
it.
long has that grant been on the table?
2 years.
Well, so I think that grant, we have to determine exactly what that was for. Was it for the soccer grant?
So
Was
there's,
it
if you
for
read the
water?
grants, and I actually sent this to our engineer today, because I also have to update NJDCA on where we stand with the grant. On one of the grants, it's a $91,000 grant. I'm not sure if that's the one that expires or not. So I asked the engineer, I said, all these scopes of work, how are you, because a lot of these scopes were double dipped in both grants. We can put them in multiple buckets if we wanted to. But I said, how are you aligning these scopes of work with what grants? I think it is their authority to do that. So I asked for that today. I do believe that we could put this soccer field and trails into that first grant that's expiring. Because we approved the pavilion, we approved the fence now tonight. That's not enough to eat up that grant. And we still have the other bids that are outstanding. We don't have authority to move forward on them yet. So we have to award some work here real soon. We're going to lose that money.
I understand that, but do we spend the money and risk that it's going to be destroyed by what this guy's got to do with his property? If he's got major issues he's got to deal
Well,
with.
maybe we should meet out there with the engineer again, because I don't see how, I can see how it's impacting the property. They see how it's impacting it in the back in the wetlands, and we're not touching that. We're touching everything basically up front of the wetlands.
I don't know that you can really separate it, but I think it would be good to meet with the engineer. He's been out to the site twice this week because of the problems, and now we have, more rain coming.
I'll reach out and speak to him and see if we can resolve this. Maybe he has some other ideas on how to extend the grant.
So the other, just reminded that the violations are so severe and he keeps doing this that I think we need to talk about having a cease and desist letter, an injunction from the judge. Because
On that property?
Yes, on that property.
What, maybe there's a way that you, when you talk to the engineer, you can use 25 Hewitt as a reason to extend the grant.
So there was a $50,000 grant for drainage improvements to the soccer field.
That's the first one that's expiring now?
But that was
It expired in
specifically
December.
earmarked for that.
Yeah.
The other grant is not for that.
Okay. So then, yeah, that plan has to go forward or we lose that $50,000.
Well, but it's also requires a 25% cash grant.
Yes.
So we have to spend money to.
And my worry is that when we spend money and then have it washed away because of what this guy is doing, and I don't, he's, seriously, he's there with the engineer on Monday. Actually, he told the engineer Friday that they agreed that he had to remove the two driveways. Because you only have one driveway for the property. He told the engineer that he was gonna do it on Monday. He came in on Saturday and did it. And then the engineer said, you have to give me 48 hours notice so I can inspect what you're doing. So he's working the system, basically, by just preempting things and then asking for forgiveness afterwards. Well, I'm sorry, we can't forgive. This is just egregious.
I can try a cease and desist letter for now to see if that helps, and perhaps that's something the township can use to maybe hold off the timing of the grant. I can try that, and at least give you something in writing that might be helpful if you need to talk to someone about it.
All right, well, I'll speak with Rob and Tom and meet them out there and see if that's in fact, if it's really gonna be an issue. And then what we can do about extending it or whatever.
Well, if my notes are correct, it's 11/12/27. November 2027.
There was one that was expiring this year.
So, but.
I don't have my computer in front of me, but
12/11/26, 56,000 from the county, but that was the one I believe that Megan got, and Tommy, that does talk about the walking trail, but it's playground equipment, cornhole, so that one is not for you.
all right, I'll look it up and make sure it's that whole grants.
Do you want me to wait until you have the site visit to send a letter, or would you like me to send it?
I mean, I think you have to send it.
I think we need to send a letter.
I will do that.
And the 91,000,
That one I think is, we have some time.
well, that one came from.
That's the state.
Yeah, and that one, I don't think any was earmarked for anything.
No, there's definitely some verbiage in there, because you submit the grant, you gotta.
But if Holly just did it, it's hard to, I couldn't find much info, so.
I-
I'm sure it should be there.
I have it, so I can fully see it. All right, I'll look at it.
All right, so if, I would be happy to meet out there with you, with the engineers as well, so we can coordinate. Yeah, I really don't want to spend money that may get literally washed away if by another big storm.
Okay.
Okay. So, thank you for bringing up the cease and desist letter. I think we definitely need to do that. All right. Moving on. Resolution number 92, 2026. Authorization to submit a grant application to New Jersey DOT for improvements to Williamson Lane, Rose Run, and Steeple View Court. So this is actually asking for an extension for that grant. So I think we should make a motion to approve that, extend to get that grant for, that's for most of the areas under the hills. Under the hills. So do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Have a second?
So,
All in favor? Aye. Resolution number 93, 2026, authorization to submit a grant application to New Jersey DOT for improvements to Goat Hill Road, Section 1, and Chimney Hill Road.
So I just had a question. The grant is only $350,000. The cost is $428,000. So we have to come up with $78,000, almost $79,000.
I'm not sure, but sometimes grants require us to put in some money behind. I'm not sure if it's the one of those.
I mean, I understand Goat Hill and Chimney Hill both need repair, replacement.
Yes, yes, it is, for the annual review.
well, isn't that an estimated cost, and we still have to put it out for bid?
Yes, I just.
So the 428, almost 429,000 is an estimated cost. Now, last year come in more.
So we could go to a contractor and say, we got $350,000.
And exactly it, we don't have to award this package, right? But I think you should apply for the grant and see how the bids come in.
Yeah, if we don't apply for it, we aren't gonna get it, so,
Yeah, okay.
yes, it is. All right, that being said, I'll make a motion to approve, can I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to Resolution 94, 2026, authorization to submit a public question to the voters concerning open space, farmland and recreation, and historic preservation trust fund tax levy. This is the resolution to change the language. We have to do this by referendum for our tax levy for open space to change it instead of just straight 6 cents per 100. It'll be an amount up to, but not exceeding 6 cents per 100. So we can then officially be able to lower our tax levy for the open space.
I just, are we having a discussion?
You can, sure.
Well, okay.
Bob just said motion, so.
Well,
I can rescind that temporarily.
All right.
okay, so what, your question?
So I just wanted to make a comment about the interpretive statement. I just think that in the first paragraph, the last sentence, the current ordinance provides for an annual levy of exactly, I'd like to add the word exactly, 0.06. The distinction we're making is that we're changing the language so it could be flexible, and the current ordinance is not flexible. So the word exactly would help the understanding of that. And then I'd like to add something somewhere that says the intention of the Township Committee is to reduce the open space tax levy by at least 0.01.
Well, I don't think we've determined that at this point.
I don't think you
You
can
make
break
more
that
than
in,
that.
then you're bound by it.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, well,
Yeah, I mean, that's the intent. is to
that's the
reduce it.
intent, but we just don't want to put it in there.
No, we don't put that in the resolution.
All right, well, I would like to add the word exactly.
Can you provide any additional information as it relates to the balances in the trust fund and the reason, this is reserved?
You mean in the interpretive statement?
Yeah.
To say we've got a lot of money and we don't know what to spend it on?
Well, the 6 cents
Yeah.
adds too much given the current valuation
Yeah.
of the property. in the
Then we
township.
keep adding
So it's a
piles of money
recommendation
to-
from
Yeah.
the township to reduce it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this would just give us
This
the
is
authority.
the authority to do
lower
that.
it. We would still then have another meeting, if it gets approved,
Yeah.
But I thought,
to decide on it.
Well, that would be in the question too.
A little more background.
I thought what Gary's saying is that provide a little understanding of why we think it's important to do this.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that could be in the question, I don't know how, We have a certain amount of words that we have to stick by for the referendum.
Charlie works with very healthy.
Yeah, you don't, when it comes to referendums, you don't want a lot of language, because
Correct.
you're gonna really just, confuse voters when they go in and look at it, you wanna simplify it as much as possible, so they can read it pretty quickly as they're in there. I mean, what additional language do you think needs to be added?
Well, I think to Gary's point, people should be aware of why we're doing this, instead of people may just think, hey, we're hacking open space on it,
I think if you're comfortable, we can certainly talk to Clerk Melby to see what our options are. I think I have a general sense of what you're looking for, and you can kind of figure that out.
Because we've all talked about this, for a year or more, and people that are voting might not be aware of that, all those conversations.
So we did, the reason that we needed to do this is it has to be to the clerk by August 1st.
Yeah.
So,
Well, listen, I think we can talk about how we handle it, but we can approve this tonight and then.
and if there's additional wording or
I think I understand the intent, so I can definitely talk to her, and then I can always look at you guys. I don't think it's something you have to vote on, as long as you're comfortable with the intent, I think that's easy enough.
that's fine.
Okay, so you're gonna make.
Motion.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, resolution 95, 2026, to appoint Township of West Amwell, County of Hunter, State of New Jersey, appointing Phil Brasso to the position of Fire Subcode Official / Inspector.
I think it should be noted in public of what transpired here with Mr. Rosso. Those that not aware, our fire subcode official resigned.
Right, we're acknowledging that later, but yes, he resigned.
And it was a, $13,000 a year position. And Mr. Rosso took it upon himself, he does have the certifications to do this job. And he said he would take it on at no additional cost.
That's correct. That's
So
correct.
tremendous thing from Mr. Rosso.
Yeah, that's correct. Very generous of you, thank you very much. So attached actually to this resolution is the resignation of our fire subcode official. And
That being said, I'll make a motion.
okay. I'll take it. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 96, 2026. Appointing construction code official as conflict construction code official for Delaware Township. This is in the cases where we have permits or zoning questions that need to be done for members of the township committee or their family members, and so there's no conflict of interest at all. And this is to appoint the construction code official of Delaware Township as the conflict construction code official. Now, I know this has been done informally in the past, because when my nephew was doing some work, they just automatically moved it over to Delaware. I'm just surprised we didn't have this.
We just did it for
in
me,
fact.
so.
Yeah.
Delaware Township approved theirs Monday night, and she sent this to us, wanting us to do it.
Okay, good.
That's how we speak about.
Good, thank you for that explanation. Okay, so, may I have a public resolution? Okay, so I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor? Aye. And we have an additional resolution 97, 2026, which is sending the bond ordinance to local finance board. This is the bond ordinance for the judgment that we have to pay. This is the one that Mr. Steele made a comment about last meeting. And it turns out that the bond ordinance that the bond council had given us was the wrong ordinance. So it was a good thing to question it, because then it would have been a bigger problem. So this bond ordinance has to go to the local finance board for approval before we can put that bond out. So are there any questions, comments on that? No? Then do we have a motion? So I have a second? All in favor? All right, moving on to new business. Just a brief discussion about the Current Point payroll timekeeping module. I think I mentioned in a previous meeting that now deposited some funds with. Most of their business actually is with municipalities, and they provide to municipalities some low-cost or no-cost options for PrimePoint, which is our payroll system. And at no cost, they are helping implement the time management system, which is going to enable us to track for all employees PTO, vacation, sick time. They'll be able to look at it on their own. They won't have to have anybody produce a report for them. It's going to be phased in first with our part-time hourly employees. The part-time and hourly employees will actually tap in and tap out. So then there won't be any handling of paper timesheets. There won't be any manual input of the time and overtime and any other things. They will all be all electronic at this point.
And their checks will be electronic.
And the checks will be, eventually it'll all be online. You'll no longer have to, and the goal is by the end of the year, we're starting, the CFO is starting in the next, I think, I'm not sure, it's this payroll, the following payroll, starting with the hourly employees. The staff at the DPW is actually getting signed up to do this at this point. And they're going to be able to check in and check out. Then what happens is the supervisor then approves their card. It goes electronically to the CFO for verification, and then right into the admin system to produce the paid checks. So this will be streamlined, and eventually it will be a paperless system for everyone.
And it will track overtime as well.
And it'll track overtime, and they'll have personal access to their PTO bank. They'll be able to look up their pay stubs at any time, and then it's all based on their own personal email, not any township email. It goes directly to them. It's going to be a big time saver in terms of manual entry, and just the fact that our staff, the administrative staff has to print out the stubs, fold them, put them in envelopes, and then distribute them. That's all going to go away.
Is the cost of this?
No cost. No cost. So that is one of the things that they do for a lot of municipalities, and we're just really fortunate they're offering that to us. And we eventually, I believe, and I will have to confirm this, but I think what they're also going to do is pay all of our PrimePoint costs for us, so we won't have that bill on our bill list anymore.
What's the benefit to them?
The benefit to them is that they get good partners and get, accounts moved over to them. They're the folks that said that they would loan us, they would provide that hot air balloon for any event that we want to have too. So they're giving back to the municipalities that they.
But we invested money in it.
We invested, yeah.
Not invested, but we purchased it.
They also actually, to deal with this escrow problem that has been brought up, they have a specific escrow system that our CFO is going to move things over once we get straight. It actually manages it as individual accounts within an entire account. The way we have had it now with Northfield, there's been a separate account for each escrow account, and it's gotten unmanageable.
So then Sean wouldn't have had that problem.
Yes.
They would have been able to tell me exactly how much was what.
It's called Z Escrow. It's a new system. They've installed it, and other banks use it, but it's going to make life very easy for our CFO to keep track of all the escrow accounts and be able to get balances immediately.
Due to the escrow, going on with Mayor, I recently read the guys copies on outstanding escrow reports. Can I get a new one of that, just so I know?
I don't see why not. I know that they're kind of a mess right now. We actually found a couple of checks that people had submitted in February or March, I think, that they had given, sent in to you, that never got posted to the escrow account. They just kind of got lost. So it is kind of a mess right now. But that's why we're looking to move that to Unity Bank, where it's much more organized, and you can do it on an individual account and That's the report on High Point. The next is an authorization to post a job for replacement of retiring public works employee. The proposal is to bring a public works laborer at a base salary of $24 an hour, which will save us over $4,000. I did get an update from our DPW director that the DPW staff, they have done an inventory of, they started doing an inventory of all of our inlets. And as of today, they have inspected all the inlets. They have about 101 inlets and catch basins and have to make repairs to 17 inlets. There are 110 left to retrofit, which some of the retrofit kits we have. The retrofit actually includes a label on the different grades that tells what the inspection date, it gives all the associated data about that inlet, the GIS location and other designations of the inlet number, and it puts that on our stormwater plan.
So I had a question, because there's some labeled bills in the bill list. I was assuming that was related to stormwater. Now, will we have to update those labels?
Yes, most of them will have to be updated.
So like $8,000 in labels?
No, I think that was for the new ones, I'm sorry. That was for the new ones, because we're gonna have to start labeling.
But again, will eventually we have to keep relabeling these?
No, once they're labeled,
That's it.
they're non-rust, once they're done, they're done.
Okay.
This is, it's an indication that we have a lot of bases that we need to look at. We have to clean out bases, we have a lot of catch bases, we have a lot of areas that are gonna require attention. And it would be really crippling in the DPW department if we do not replace them. Especially we have that new mower, and there's gonna be a lot of training is gonna have to happen too.
Easily offset the amount of time they spent fixing the old one.
You bet. You bet. Very expensive. So I would like to ask for authorization for our DPW director to move forward and recruit an employee, a replacement employee, so that the person can be able to train on what needs to be done. And second?
Second. So just to clarify, Brandon will be handling this? You don't want me to post anything to include someone?
I want to see if he thinks it needs to be advertised. And if it needs to be advertised, can we authorize to have it advertised, in the municipalities?
I guess I should have really looked more, that's what I understood today.
Yeah.
And we always should be advertised, we don't just recruit.
Yeah, well, recruit is, to me, is advertising, so. If that's okay,
So is Brandon handling that?
he will handle the interviews and everything, but
No, the advertisement, do I need to do anything, or is this Brandon?
can he work with you on that?
Sure.
That'd be great. I'm not sure what kind of job description you have, but you probably have.
I have.
You have that already. And we'll work on that. Good. So can we move forward with an authorization to advertise and recruit for this position?
We have motion to second.
And all in favor? Next is change order for Rocktown Landing Road, Section 7. This is a change order from Van Cleef. They, part of the change order is the guide rail, which is going to be probably another change order. But this is for work that has already been done, and it's on that grant, so this is the final change order for this year. And I think we're spending less than actually contract price for that as well.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, but I would say it's a change order, not a favor.
Yeah.
But there may be an additional fee. There's another change order to correct?
Yes.
Because it's the wrong
Correct.
part.
So we're actually $7,000 less from the change order, but what was spec'd out by Colliers did not have this correct guide rail spec'd out for the bridge. They had spec'd out guide rails that were at posts in the ground, and these actually have to be attached to the bridge, so it's a different price for that. So we may end up being, we're saving $7,000 here, but we may end up spending on the guide rail. But that's.
They put the first one in, and it has to be removed.
No, it wasn't in, it wasn't ever installed, because when they got to doing it, it didn't have the correct way of installing it. It had to be installed on the bridge, and they had spec'd it out with the posts.
Because I'm looking at this right, this says beam, guide rail, anchorage, traffic, stripe, topsoil. I mean, is that all, if it's being attached to the side of the bridge, I don't know why we need some of these additional items. I don't know exactly where this change order is inside this proposal. I don't know if they have it written down.
It's hard to tell, but it sounds like they probably did how to do something, and what they did isn't what they actually have to do.
That's what they have to do, because, yeah.
So
exactly.
they're getting a rebate, and then will probably charge us for doing it the way that it's appropriate.
Oh, I see. So it's a $30,000 deed, it's $23,000 ad.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get it now.
And so, can I have a motion to approve? I make a change order. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We've already gone through the letter of resignation from the fire subcode. We just want to officially acknowledge that we received the letterization from Phil Glenn. Next on the agenda is letter of support for West Amwell Park Company's submission for county fire and EMS grant. This was done, the deadline, I believe, was early July, so we approved it via email for them to they needed support from the township in order to apply to the county. So we email individually to our attorney, and we approved that, so they could send that and get that by the deadline. So we're just acknowledging that we sent the letter of support, which I believe everybody approved of, but as far as I remember. Okay. Next, we discussed recommendation from the Cannabis Advisory Committee. Do we need a resolution for this? No, this is a discussion.
But we'll ultimately need a resolution.
Yes, we will ultimately press it, but a discussion. Yes, and, yeah, we will need definitely more than that, like an ordinance, but for the time being, I'd like if we could ask Megan Hudson to come up and discuss the recommendation, because she wrote it up at the request of the Cannabis Advisory.
All right, so, but everyone has a copy, correct, ahead of time? So thank you. So the Cannabis Advisory Committee met back in June, and one of the things that we were talking about is that the window to open, and the 5-year window where you have to either opt in or opt out is starting again as of, let's say August 26th, I have it here.
August 22nd.
August 22nd, thank you. And so one thing we discussed as the Cannabis Advisory Committee is that we submit a recommendation to you all. Do you want me to read the statement that we did, or just tell you in general? So we talked about two different things. So the one thing we talked about that came up as a suggestion was actually doing something where you just pause receiving any applications, because there's a lot of questions with regards to changes that have happened, and the cannabis adoptions and the amendments that have occurred since 2021, and so that we recognize that these ordinances have been revised periodically to address changes in the state law, regulations, and guidance issued by the CRC, and it continues. But that, one thing that you could consider is doing a comprehensive review and revision of the township's existing cannabis regulatory considering whether or not to opt out when you're able to. I'm really bad at either good at reading word by word or just summarizing. I'm doing really bad at between, so I apologize. And so we recognize that the CAC is an advisory committee in nature, and that any proposed ordinance revisions would be developed and adopted through the appropriate municipal legislation and land use process with the assistance of the township professionals and other appropriate bodies. But the CAC would help, along with that research and analysis, if that recommendation is to continue to do it. But
your understanding is that if the township were to opt out, it can opt back in at any time.
absolutely. So when it comes to the regs, essentially once you opt in, you're in. And you can't prohibit any activity that you previously allowed in. So when we adopted our original cannabis activities, we said, okay, we're going to do these 3 things that there were licenses for. And then we couldn't say delivery, distribution, warehousing, because they didn't even create that yet. The CRC is like, we'll deal with that later, but the dispensary, cultivation, manufacturing, we all opted in for as a township, or you guys opted in as a township. Right, and so they're saying you can't prohibit. One thing that has happened over the years during the ordinances is that it went from unlimited to limiting the number of the licenses that are available, but you can't actually prohibit anything according to the reg unless you're within this 180-day window. And the way that the reg works is it says at the end of the 5-year period following the initial failure of the municipality to enact an ordinance prohibiting the operation of one or more classes of cannabis establishment, distributors, cannabis delivery services, and every 5-year period thereafter following a failure to enact a prohibiting ordinance, the municipality shall again be permitted to prohibit the future operation of any one or more classes of cannabis establishment or cannabis distributors or cannabis delivery services through the enactment of an ordinance during a new 180-day period. And so essentially you have this window that's going to open in August and then closes again in February. And so the recommendation of the Cannabis Advisory Committee is to consider opting out. And regardless of whether or not you as the Township Committee decide to opt back in later, opt out, review what have the changes been made, make sure that there's one clear ordinance and regulation that's set forth that you would then reintroduce in the future if you want. The one thing about opting out is you can only opt out in the 6-month window. You can opt back in at any time for one or multiple in that 5 years. But once you opt back in, you're locked in for that 5 years for that. So that was a big conversation that we had, was because there's different ordinances and different discussions and, which one is in place or, where things are at, that the best thing to do would be to take a break, reorganize, and then come back. But that would entail opting out during this short period, which would be an ordinance, so it'll take a couple months to actually do it. One thing that we also discussed was pausing applications in the meantime, so that way no one's wondering, are we applying under this ordinance or that ordinance, what ones are actually applying at the time. And then that would give an opportunity to, please, yeah.
So that was interesting. You said any applications that are currently in can be paused.
No, if somebody's applied, they've applied. They're grandfathered.
You said applications, so that's why I was...
Pausing applications, accepting new. So it'd be okay, pause for now, let us get it together, and then, can I speak as,
So anything that's existing now, applications and active businesses, would continue?
Yeah, they're all great, but you can't, they're already, it's actually, there's a statute that says you can't, anybody that's currently operation approved, you can't take that away, right? They would continue to operate, they would not be affected. So GM&J would not be affected with their cultivation in any way, they're still approved.
And there's the dispensary and also the Grow NJ Grow Free. Those are applications that are already on the books. Those would continue, all 3 businesses.
Yeah, so the regs continues after it says during a new 180-day period, but this ordinance shall be prospective only and not apply to any cannabis establishment, distributor, or delivery service operating in a municipality prior to the enactment of the ordinance. So that's the FedRAMP in terms of operating. I'll leave it to you guys in terms of is it you know, they got the approval between the land use board, and they would be, I would assume, grandfathered in by not the land use attorney,
I have a
obviously.
question about the pausing. I mean, until this is enacted upon, do we have the authority to say, oh, we can't accept your application?
So why don't I address this? I do think you can take a pause, right? You can take a pause. You can put it on the website that you're not accepting any new applications at this time. I will tell you, based on what I've seen in terms of the ordinances you passed and how many you passed in a short period of time, I highly recommend that you do an ordinance stopping any more cannabis for this time period, and you can opt in a month from that point. That is irrelevant, but I do think that this will allow you time to clarify. And you can kind of think about it as any other business. Take the cannabis part of it out, right? The issue that you guys have is that it is very difficult for any business to come in and look at the different ordinances you have and have a true understanding of what is happening currently. And again, it's not a judgment, it's just that problem exists, and this would clarify that problem across the board and at least take that exposure away from you, and then allow you to revise it however you see fit, and then decide to open up later on. It will not affect your current business, and it will not affect your current applicant. That would just not be appropriate or legal.
There seems to be a lot of connection between the master plan and the related ordinances. And the master plan at one point in time certainly made addressed cannabis. The challenge that we've had in part is the state continues to evolve what they, and then the township has a very difficult time reacting, particularly when the court system
And when the
then
regulations don't come, right?
doesn't support those respective changes.
Yeah.
So I would actually be pro opting out for a period of time in order to get the master plan and the ordinances appropriately aligned. I mean, we've got that ongoing litigation issue, which I really don't understand where the court's even at on that one.
I can update, why don't I update, because I didn't elaborate before, but I think I can say obviously what is in the public domain, and that's what's in the court record already. So we had a, let's say a status conference with the court. We addressed that the issue, in our opinion, from the township's perspective, has been resolved in its entirety. Of course, the other side did not agree. I will say that the other side wasn't in court, which obviously made it a little more difficult. The attorney wasn't in court, so that made it a little more difficult. But we certainly put the township's position on the record, and obviously the judge can't prejudge it without the other attorney there. But I do think we made our position very clear that we will leave all of the issues in this particular matter completely resolved to the steps we've already taken. Our side of township is putting forward a summary judgment motion to say exactly those things and to make our position extremely clear that that is where we are right now. I expect obviously strong opposition from the other side, and we will continue to address it. I'm truly hopeful that the court sees our side of it and dismisses the case in its entirety, but I don't know that to be the case.
The court also seemed to arrive, if I'm reading it correctly, with a conclusion that the governing document is ordinance 1021. All right, which is
That's another step or two back.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember off the top of my head which one it was, and I do apologize, because you guys have 8. 8, right? And so, I don't know that answer off the top of my head.
When we were looking through it, it'll say that like the summary judgment was that they essentially said we're throwing out the A 2020, no, A 12/2023, because from the original one, they said the noticing was wrong, and then they brought it in terms of the a big part of the argument that Rossweiler had, and this is me talking this in general, not necessarily CAC, right, is Rossweiler was arguing that there was like 2 years between the master plan revision, which was 2021, and the 2023. And they left out, very conveniently, in their argument that there were multiple different amendments that occurred in between there, right? Because you had 8 and 10 in 2021, and then you had another 8 2022, right, before you got to 523, and then you had the 1223, right? And so there were all these different ones, right, that were going through, but they argued that there was too much time between the master plan in 2021 and the 2023. And so then Rossweiler was arguing when he was here that it was 822, but then in the summary judgment that they submitted, I think, to the court but wasn't signed, they were saying 1021. So
I understand they get to the 10 because they should be to the 12, I think, right?
Well,
all this is the reason.
That would be the reason why there's all of these
You're just
confusions,
making
right?
case
And then,
Well, but what I'll say is, to Gary's point, okay, the reason why there were so many amendments is because there were so many rule changes from the state.
yeah, that's true.
That could still happen. We could still be in the same situation if we opt out and opt back in, and they keep making rule changes, and we have to keep making adjustments. Be the same situation. So it wasn't like it was done haphazardly. It's just that the rules kept changing, and we were trying to keep up.
No, there's no doubt about, like, in terms of the intention of why it was changing, but they're saying that, like, because there wasn't a master plan, and some of the changes because of the state changes, to Gary's point, like, are not consistent with the master plan. I mean, the master plan is not very consistent on the cannabis side, in my personal opinion, not of, you know, the board. But either way, that was part of their argument. You can argue anything in court, as I'm sure we could say, not all of it's valid. But I think the fact that there's the confusion of which one, is anybody fighting that said, like, oh no, it's not this one, it's this one. Because right now, right, you have 12, 20, 25, right, that's currently in place. So as a new applicant to that one, because he amended his complaint and he's litigating to terminate that one, in which case, so the idea is just, or the recommendation to come back to it would be to opt out for now, because you have a very, very limited window to do so. And then you can do whatever you need to on the website. So that way it's really clear that if you decide you want to opt back in, you do an analysis, you maybe look at the master plan, which I would be personally a very big fan of first, and then redo that ordinance if it's something that you guys want to do, that it's very clear what one you're working from, but because by doing the master plan, you wouldn't have those same issues that were raised.
So opting out, we can opt out for as long as we want, or as little as. And our personal West Amwell Township CAC, Cannabis Advisory Committee, can keep an eye on what the state is doing and keep advising us as to whether it's time to opt in or it's time to still keep opting out.
Yeah, you can opt back in. So you can opt in at any time. You can only opt out and for any particular type in a 180-day window once every 5 years. So once you opt in for something, then you're kind of stuck with that. One thing that they argued, and again, argue and win is a very different scenario of the Rossweiler, was that they were saying that because you allow, even though the township was allowing micro cultivation and still allowing micro cultivation and cultivation, they were arguing in their case that, like, oh, you're prohibiting cultivation just because you were saying you can't do it in these residential zones, which wasn't the intent, because you can still do micro cultivation and you can still do regular cultivation in other areas of the township, but they were trying to push that through, that you can't even remove it from limiting the locations once you allow it, which I personally felt was a gross jump in terms of that, but I'm not the attorney and it hasn't been decided on in terms of their argument whether or not it's valid, but it could be concerning, I guess.
We'll also make the point that opting out is probably a good idea, August 21st, and then we can take a look at things as time goes by.
Yeah, so I would defer to you in terms of the timing, because I think you said August 19th is your next meeting. You can't opt out. You could certainly introduce an ordinance, I would imagine, at the next meeting, and then in September.
But the,
do it. Yeah.
but the recommendation was to opt out when the period opens, but to
So,
immediately.
Thank you. Yeah, so the recommendation of the CAC was to close the application window, quote unquote, that currently exists for a license, but you're not changing your land use law, you're not currently opting out until then. And then looking at, if you do want to continue, really doing a review of what are the regs, what's happening, what's changed since, the last 2 years, because it keeps altering and changing. So those were the two recommendations, but the main one being the opt-out and then the
So
secondary.
you're saying that we could put it on the website and go declare that we're not receiving any more applications as of now? No,
We're not changing anything right now. We're not
Right,
changing
right, so we have to do the ordinance.
Yes.
Or the resolution, and then we can proceed, okay.
So, Committeeman, I understand your concern, and I don't discount it. Let me just be clear, right? If someone wants to make an argument. they
If you
don't
want to challenge that, I don't know what our.
I would tell you, one of the safest things to do is be clear, right, and transparent. So if you put on your website that you're not accepting applications at this time, no business should have the expectation that West Amwell is accepting an application at this time, right? It's putting a business on notice that, hey, we're not ready for you yet. We're dealing with some internal things that we're working through. And so your issue right now is that a business can come in and just not be sure. That's where you have exposure. And that's what we're trying to get rid of, as much as I can, at least for that part of it. Do I think it is 100% foolproof? No, I'm never going to say that, right? You are creative with their challenges.
Big challenge, I don't know how.
I would tell you, it's still your best step. Your best step at this point.
Some of that is also a function of what is the governing document.
Correct, which is why. I think, again, if you're asking me the safest route for the town right now, put a message on your website that says you're not accepting applications at this time. That would be my strong recommendation right now for you guys.
Like now,
Yeah.
before the resolution or then.
I would honestly say no. It needs a go, feel free, but I think you're gonna have a company that comes in and says, I'm challenging you because I want to go under this ordinance number 7 to number 5, right? And that is where your problem truly lies.
I don't know how we even put that statement out there when there's no official document saying it's not accepting applications.
There is
That would be.
in the cannabis ordinance about application period.
Yeah, there is. And it talks about an application window, which has never existed. It was kind of just ongoing, but it is in the reg.
I think it's some legacy language in the state when they have renewable licenses and stuff in the EDC. I mean, I don't want to get technical stuff, but it does mention an application period. Application window.
You're just gonna write your first in application period. For now.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
Sean,
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify a couple of things because there's a lot of talk about the master plan. So cannabis isn't actually in the land use element. Where it is in the 2021 reexamination report because they never adopted the land use element after that. The 2021 reexamination report was something that was mentioned in Judge Mendon's decision, in part because it said that cultivation should be allowed in the SRPD, which is a residential zone, right? So I would suggest, as far as timing on all this, and we haven't, put together a full draft yet. There's been some work done on it, but one of the things we were waiting on was getting a recommendation from all the appropriate bodies as well as from the Township Committee as to how you wanted to move forward on that. So I would suggest, if you've made that determination, then we should discuss it at next week's meeting and try to get a draft, before the board by August so that we can look at it and then try to get that adopted through a public hearing, re-examination report with whatever the recommendation should be with the correct legal language, and then you can do your opt-out ordinance, and that way nobody can say we did things in the wrong order, because I think that was one of the issues in the litigation, was they were saying, well, we didn't adopt in the re-examination report, we didn't adopt X, Y, and Z in the correct order. So that's just what I would suggest procedurally. Thanks.
So, where we go from here is, I appreciate the recommendation of the Chair Lang's board to
concerns about the master plan and synchronizing things and do what we can to speed that along. And so then we are definitely prepared for an ordinance and starting the August time, in the August. Is that acceptable, everyone?
And in the meantime, should anything be posted on the website?
I think given what our council said based on her, and any business that may want to explore this, and they have a question about what actually is the governing document at this point, it's a matter of concern. So,
We got told at one point in time that we could stop that process, that we considered putting a timeout for the applications on the site. One of our wonderful professionals.
I'd rather, and my recommendation would be that you put it up, that you're closing the period, and that,
I think you're all close right now.
Yeah.
We're in July, you're talking about the period opening here in August, and you're going to introduce an ordinance. And I think that really makes it clear.
And Arlene, maybe you could help craft the language.
happy to.
if that's okay with everyone, I think that's how we'll proceed, and we'll do our best to.
No, I'm not necessarily sure I'm on board with it.
Is it something that we need to vote on then? Because I want clarity in terms of making sure I understand what the majority wants.
So can I have a motion then to?
I'll make a motion that we move forward with opting out.
Adding language
Place
to
the
the
statement.
website.
Place the statement on the website.
Oh, all right,
Closing
step
our,
one. Step one.
yes,
Got it.
closing our
All right, I make a
application
motion that we put something up on the website.
to close the
Close
application.
the application period.
Do I have a second?
I'd like to hear, you on cannabis, please, I'm going to do that.
I'm in favor of moving towards opting out and then coordinating all of the respective documents. And then the township can make some determination as to whether it wants to opt back in or not. But we did look, Megan, I don't know, you might remember, we looked at turning applications off earlier. We're told that, we couldn't go that route for some reason.
I can't speak to anyone else. What I would tell you is, I would much rather deal with an attorney calling me, saying, why do you have an opt-out period, and deal with it that way, than having an attorney come in and say, we're putting an application in, here's the ordinance we think it falls under. So for me, that would be a much worse decision for me to have to get you out of, to be honest, than to have an attorney call me and say, you can't opt out. Okay, let's talk about that.
Well, we've already got one application in, all right, that is in under an ordinance that theoretically is not the current ordinance.
Hence my suggestion of moving in that direction, just so that there's clarity for the public, and no misunderstanding of where we stand as a township.
Again, my position is that I'm all in favor of moving forward with some kind of an ordinance in August timeframe, but not jumping the gun otherwise.
Okay, so the motion is that we will put something on the website that would say we are closing the application period for cannabis.
They were just not accepting.
Not accepting any new applications.
As it's done.
We have a motion and a second. Okay, we have a roll call vote, please.
Bell,
No.
Fitty, Sawyer,
No.
Enderby, aye, Deal.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. Okay, now we are to the point we would like to talk about the resilience grant, and I'm pleased that Mayor Rowlick is here from Lambertville. We've talked about a couple of meetings, the resilience grant and the application for it. What I am asking for at this point is approval to send a letter in, which there are three parts to the application, and you have all these three parts that were included in the packet, the board packet. Might I ask you, Mary Ellen, to come up and talk about the role of landlord?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here. Just a little background for the folks in the room. This is a grant through Resilient NJ that would allow a region, a self-defined region, to form and have access to a fairly significant planning grant. So currently, there are 7 municipalities and 2 community-based organizations who have submitted applications to Lambertville. Lambertville would serve as the prime applicant for the grant, which means that we would help facilitate the grant. We would use our staff to proceed or to process payments to municipalities for their staffs and so forth. The grant will basically provide 2 things for municipalities. It will give them under the municipal land use law, is now a requirement that we provide a climate change related hazard vulnerability assessment for each municipality, which basically identifies the key, your key critical infrastructure and and how it's susceptible to various climate hazards. And then secondly, it would provide strategies kind of across the region or between municipalities for cooperation for resilience planning. And that could be everything from a small thing like a shared services for street sweeping to satisfy an MS4 permit, or it could be more of a regional planning effort in terms of the 151 miles of Category 1 waterways that are in this 7 municipality region. So that's just a little bit about the grant. The application is due next week, and as I said, we've got 7 municipalities. Lambertville will be the prime, Stockton, Delaware, East Amwell, Hopewell Township, Hopewell Borough, and Pennington all committed to the grant. We do have letters of support from Commissioner Director Lanza for this grant, and also from the Mercer County Planning Commission. So it's been a well-supported grant, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about your participation or Lambertville or anybody else's.
You do also the Watershed Institute and the
Yes.
Firelands Conservancy.
Thank you. Those are the 2 community-based organizations who would also be participating in the grant.
So I understand it's a $350,000 grant?
The exact amount hasn't been released. Somewhere between $250,000 and $400,000. It depends on the DEP will allocate the funds depending on how many regions apply, but it would probably be at least $250,000. So individual municipalities would be refunded or granted money for administrative staff and like the DPW and anybody who would, but not engineers, just kind of like your municipal staff.
And that number would be split amongst the members?
It would not. Basically what that happens is the grant, the DEP gives a sizable amount to each of the 2 community-based organizations. So they've each submitted a budgeted amount. And then the balance of the grant would go to fund technical experts in resilience planning. So Lambertville received a grant for this in 2023, and we were given DEP-funded consultants that spent a year and a half with Lambertville to generate this 260-page resilience action plan, which contains all kinds of strategies, as well as the 30 pages of our climate change-related hazard vulnerability assessment. So it's a technical assistance grant.
How much does that whole process cost you guys?
It costs us nothing. So it costs us nothing. It's just staff time, basically. I worked on the grant with the clerk, and we had the DPW. I met with the consultants. They came to the city. I spent a day with all these technical experts, showing them what our areas of concern are. They did all the mapping. They prepared for all the public meetings that are a requirement as part of the grant. So we weren't out with a single penny. The grant was probably valued somewhere at about $175,000 for that.
Because I'm concerned, I don't know if West Amwell is required to do some of these things. I probably believe we need to do a few of them. I don't know if we need to do all of them. And I don't want to get a grant that gives us $25,000 but costs us $200,000 to do this.
Well, I would encourage you to look at it a different way. So one of the things that it's opened up for us is now we have a structure, we have an infrastructure of projects and things that we can do. Where, there's no obligation here. It's no mandate that you have to do these things. But now we have all of these strategies. and that opens us up to additional grant funding. So, we've already processed well over $100,000 in grants since we've adopted our climate resilience action plan. So, part of the benefit is it's going to give each municipality really an understanding of what they could do for themselves and in partnership with other communities. So, I'd be very clear that, some of these municipalities, Pennington, for example, Hopewell Borough, completely surrounded by one other municipality. As you know, Lambertville only really borders West Amwell, a little bit of Delaware on the north side along the Alex Creek. So some of our strategies in our resilience action plan are reliant on partners. And it's not just West Amwell, it's the state of New Jersey, which owns land in the watershed. It's Veolia Water, which has a large reservoir here. So there's a lot of different opportunities for doing things. And as I said in my email, I think that not everything is going to work. Some of our strategies are so big that realistically we're not going to be able to do them in the short term unless we get grant funding. But we've now applied for 3 different grants for a project that we really like to do, and we haven't been able to kind of meet all the metrics of the grant funding for that project. But it's well defined in our plan, and it makes it much easier to sort of go out for grant funding when you're ready to do it. Does that answer your question?
Sort of.
Yeah. So it doesn't require you to do anything. What it does do is it gives you your climate change related hazard vulnerability assessment, which is valuable. It's information for you, it's data for you to look at your municipality and where your weaknesses are. And then it gives you the opportunity to work with neighboring municipalities or not. There's no mandate to do these strategies. It's a planning document for the most part.
So I just have a graphic. You can see colors, right? West Amwell is pink. Everybody else around us signed up to do this. We're kind of in the middle of everything. And I know this is a very small thing, but I'm thinking you should see that, we're kind of, I believe we're kind of key to a lot of what happens downstream, obviously.
So how are we going to leverage our position with Lambertville?
Well,
let me tell you this. I think in my email I made it pretty clear that part of the reason Lambertville isn't taking on the responsibility of a massive grant and my clerk and my CFO because we're altruistic, right? We need if we want some of our strategies to work, we're going to have to come to you. And it doesn't mean I lived here as I mentioned, right? So I think this is an incredible town. At the same time, I can't necessarily stand here and expect West Amwell, a small rural community, to foot the bill for all of Lambertville's down. We chose to be in Lambertville at the bottom of the watershed, so I get it.
Well, that's my concern. We don't have a budget of Hopewell. Quite frankly, we don't have a budget of Lambertville. West Amwell is very unique. I know we're surrounded, but we're very different than a lot of the surrounding towns that are in this program. I just think it's a knee-jerk reaction. Well, everyone else is in it, and we should be in it too. No, we have to look at what our situation is, what our requirements are, what we need to do, and spend this money wisely. And I don't see a huge upside. Listen, this grant came in, it's $200,000-$300,000. Well, okay, but from what I hear, no one can give me a firm answer. What I hear is we're getting a very minimal amount of money from this grant. But in doing so, we could be responsible to do some things that could cost us a lot of money down the road.
We're not getting money. The $250,000 is to pay for a plan that we all share, right?
Right.
which if we ever want to update our land use element of the master plan, we have to have that plan, that climate change.
But it's a plan that the grant is paying for, and we're all sharing the grant.
Yeah.
We're not getting pieces, we're not divvying up the $250,000 and then having to use it to pay for the things that need to be done. It's a plan.
That's how it was addressed a few months ago.
That's what you brought that up at the last meeting, that it was $300,000 divided by 6.
It was stated, I asked how this grant was.
But we misunderstood. So now I understand that it's one plan that we're all sharing together, and we all use the plan.
All right, so correct me, 'cause maybe I'm just a little thick here. It's a plan that we're sharing. It's a
Right.
grant that we're sharing.
Yeah.
It's money that we're sharing.
No, we're not sharing any money, we're giving money to people that are gonna do the plan.
Yes, the grantees are giving the money, and from that, we will get the plan that we need if we ever want to.
If we don't, they're gonna move forward without us. They'll get a plan. We won't have a plan.
And we'll have to pay for it separately.
And we'll have to pay for it separately. On our
Out of
own,
pocket, with no grant.
with no grant.
Mayor, no, what, when you got the grant in 2023, that paid for that plan that was 200 some pages?
Yeah.
What, how did that help you get through IDA?
Well, it happened after IDA. So.
Oh, it was after?
Yeah, so it was 2023.
Oh,
I was 21.
But it identified all of our most critical weaknesses. And it's a remarkable document. I would encourage everybody to look at it. It's on our website. It really is, at a minimum, it's an incredible data set for us, and I just keep it on
Well,
my
I'm just
desk.
asking, how did you apply that data?
Well, we've done, so we have a lot of strategies. There's, I don't know how many pages of strategies, but we've done little things and we've started to do bigger things, right? So, so one of the strategies is green infrastructure along Neely Creek. So we got a grant from Sauerland Conservancy to plant native species, trees, and shrubs along the creek.
To help mitigate the
Correct,
floodwaters?
yes. So there's, there are strategies that can be about education. Another grant that we just recently, so a small thing that we did was, as part of a strategy, we adopted an ordinance that waived all permitting fees for any kind of mitigation work at your property. A small thing, but meaningful, right, to people who have suffered flood damage and want to raise them chemicals. Also, the plan encouraged us to work with the communities around, and we started to do that. So, when people, other communities satisfy their MS4 TRA permitting requirements, whether it's through the street sweeping program, we've offered video camera services and pipes. We have a video camera that we got a $50,000 grant from the county for. So that's another strategy in terms of assessing. We have 575 inlets in Lambertville. It's a lot of pipes.
So all this data you turned into action?
Yes, small action.
That's helped deal with some of the recent storms we've had?
Absolutely.
And that plan was purely solely Lambertville.
Yes. Yeah. We worked hard for that grant.
So what's your focus for 2026, 2027 here as it relates to the updated plan?
Lambertville, one of our strategies was to work regionally. And so what my goal here is to oversee and facilitate this grant for all the municipalities who want to participate. It's a big ask. It's an enormous amount of personal time. I can't tell you how much time I put into the grant for Lambertville, but it was worth it. And Lambertville is deeply committed to this process. And I think that after we do what we can in our municipalities, whether it's educating people or creating new infrastructure, green infrastructure, gray infrastructure, whatever it is, I think that if we can reach out across our borders, why wouldn't we? And I've attended township committee meetings in all of these towns except for Pennington and Hopewell, and there was a lot of enthusiasm for, well, we can at least understand what our own problems are through these expert consultants, and then we can decide to what extent it makes sense for us to work with communities upstream or downstream or next door.
And is the anticipation that the plans are drafted for each of the participating municipalities, or is it one master plan for the region?
I'm not sure how that's going to play out. And certainly each municipality will have its assessment, its hazard vulnerability assessment. And then I think that certainly we'll see recommendations across the region. So every municipality under the new TRA permit, and we switched over the same time you did in 2022, and it was 3 years of incredibly arduous work, and I spent a great deal of time working through that. But one of the requirements is individual watershed improvement plan. So this grant, one of the areas I think would be important for us regionally would be to look at our Category 1 streams, right? So, I think it's a little asinine personally for individual municipalities to have kind of freestanding watershed improvement plans when the watershed is so much greater than one municipality, right? So, even if it's just Lambertville and West Amwell kind of possibly talking about strategies to make Alexalcan Creek, to restore sections that have been degraded through storms or erosion or whatever. There's ways to partner in ways that are both small and large. Whether it's just, it could be something as basic as getting your environmental commissions together to talk about ways in which you could educate your towns. There's a lot of different possibilities here.
Maybe you could invest in our 109 acres at the top of the hill.
But to that point, future grants may require that two municipalities.
Right. That's another thing, right? It opens up, the thing that's so exciting about this grant is these grants almost never happen where you have, the breadth of this grant is pretty impressive. I'll give New Jersey a lot of credit for this kind of thinking, right? Because, how do you bring disparate towns to the table, right? So we have municipalities here who have different political kind of partners, different cultural expectations, or the municipalities are urban with less than 1.2 square mile. The other 4 are rural with 146 square miles. So, I think it's really exciting to bring kind of everybody together and sort of figure out what our commonalities are across a geographic region and across political boundaries.
Well, the Sauerland Regional Planning, that brought a lot of attention to the Sauerland Mountain.
It did, and that'll be a huge component, I think, of the planning, right? So, and there's only 5 municipalities that touched in this grant program that touched the Sauerland Mountains. It's a complicated region because half of the municipalities drain into both the Raritan and the Delaware. Only 2 municipalities drain strictly into the Delaware. So it's a complex region geographically. I'm curious to see, I'm fascinated to see how these kind of experts are going to want to parse this out in terms of strategies within a given watershed.
Any questions?
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I would like to ask for a motion, please, to approve submitting this letter of support for the grant program. I'll make a motion.
record, that's all.
Okay, so say that again, pull back the motion. Is it safe to discuss, we have to withdraw the motion?
Withdraw the motion.
Oh, withdraw the motion, okay, I'll withdraw the motion, okay.
No discussion.
Now you question.
I've been reading Robert's rule.
It's fun, isn't it? It's fun to read.
All right, so, I've read Lambertville's plan, and I can see both sides of the discussion there. I'm certainly having conversations with Mayor Deal about it. Philosophically, I have a problem with accepting federal money, especially from HUD. I think I've outlined that previously about my concerns about it. I understand there's been some legal review in this case, and the consensus is that that risk is relatively minimal, especially with the Trump administration currently being in. When those other rules were in place, it was the Obama and Biden administration. Do we have to do this? No. We don't have to adopt a new land use element. We could keep the one from 2010 on the books indefinitely because we don't have any changes in zoning. The question is, at what point, for things like census data or other facts and figures in there, if we don't update them for 30 or 40 years, could somebody say, you haven't touched your master plan in too long? That's an unknown question. I do have a concern with the fact that DEP picks the professionals who do these plans. If you look at Lambertville's plan, the professionals that did it, they're primarily based in Denmark. A lot of the pictures in Lambertville's plans are of Danish stormwater facilities. When they talked about West Amwell, they had a lot of the facts about West Amwell wrong. For example, this property is shown as owned by the state of New Jersey. The DEP property down the street is shown as owned by West Amwell. Suppose if we participate, we can make sure that those facts are correct. And if we're not, don't have a seat at the table, then there's also possibly true decisions to be made without us. Back in my head, do I have a concern that somebody may use this to try to strong-arm us into doing something we don't want? Like, a tree ordinance, for example. We've been talking about, like with Ag Advisor earlier this month, we were talking about Department of Ag's recommendation about using the lower Alloways tree ordinance, which is much less restrictive than what you've seen other towns like Lambertville adopt. So I guess the question, if it was just Lambertville and West Amwell, it would be, those might be more concerning, but because we do have more municipalities involved, and some of them are rural, maybe that gives us a little bit more talking. So I don't know that I'm directly answering your question, Gary. I'm not an elected official. If I were sitting at the table, I would personally vote no, probably, because philosophically, that's just where I am, and that's where I told Mayor Deal. But at the same time, I completely respect the other side, and as I told her, I'm happy to work with Andrew. He was my neighbor in West Amwell when he lived here, and we will fully cooperate and work with those guys. And it is true that if we had a resiliency plan, then we could just adopt a master plan. But the question, of course, is, will we actually be happy with the resiliency plan, which is a requirement to adopt? And if we don't like it, how much money will we have to spend to then fix it in order to bring it into compliance with West Amwell values? I don't know the answer to that question. So because of all of those no's and the whole, like philosophically, I'm averse to taking federal money. That's kind of where I am.
Are we otherwise responsible though for having such data available for our master plan that we would otherwise have to budget for?
Governor Murphy, and I think it was in 2021, amended the municipal land use law so that if we touch our land use element, we do have to have a climate resiliency plan in place. But we're triggered by us touching the land use element, which I think was last done in 2010 or 2011. So if we don't touch that, then we don't have to do this. But again, the question becomes, there's facts and figures in there. How long does it become the point where somebody could say, well, you haven't touched it in 30 years? The way the MLUO works is you don't have to update or re-adopt your master plan, right? You have to adopt a re-examination report at least once every 10 years. So I don't think we're at any risk with it in the short term, but if we're still having this conversation in 2050, and it's been 40 years since anybody's done it, and somebody says, your census data is 40 years out of date, even if you want to change the typos or something, you're touching the master plan at that point, and you have to have it in place. So I don't know if that muddies the waters further. since I was asked, I'm giving you all the same feedback that I gave Mayor Deal. I certainly respect her position on it, and I told her I'm happy to work with anybody on it. You know, philosophically, I'm conservative, and I just don't like taking money from the federal government. So, thanks.
So my one concern about that is honestly, the state can change the rules anytime they want. So right now, it is a requirement